I'm Paul Schaefer.
I'm Will Lee.
And you are watching the Letterman Podcast.
La, 'Twas my night at the Late Show and all through the ed. Not a creature was sleeping unless it was dead. The cameras were hung by the desk in each chair in hopes that Dave Letterman soon would be there. The audience was nestled all snug in their seats while visions of Letterman made their hearts skip 2 beats. With Calvert in a kerchief and Rupert in his cap, we knew we weren't in for a 1-hour nap. Eddie, the warm-up guy, was ready to go, and I knew in a moment it was time for the show. I guess band introduction time must have came, because he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Sid, now Felicia, now Anton, Al, Will. On Bones, on Bruce, and at the top of the bill, at the top of the bandstand with no red nose at all. Now clap away, here comes Paul. And then in a twinkling I heard on the stage the prancing and pawing of each CBS page. As I drew in my breath and was turning around, downstage David Letterman came with a bound. He was dressed in Armani from his head to his foot. Now that later changed to Sue Hum. He was dressed by Sue Hum, but I don't think she was there yet, but it did change. He was dressed in Armani from his head to his foot, his peninsula hairpiece, the color of soot, with a bundle of jokes thanks to Inky's hard labors. And I thought, wake the kids, phone up the neighbors. His eyes, how they twinkled, what a gap-toothed mouth, and a tie that was headed all the way to the south. The can of a ham he held tight in his hands, and he tossed it a bit before all of his fans. Leonard Tepper came out, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. Then with a toss of a pencil and a shake of his fist, he proceeded to read us his top 10 list. He finished his list and went straight to his work, interviewing celebrities who may think he's a jerk. Then laying his pencil aside of his nose and giving a nod, the show came to a close. He sprang to his feet, to his staff gave a whistle, and off flew his jacket like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim as he walked out of sight, "Thanks for being here, come again, and to all a good night."
Welcome once again to the Letterman Podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. This is our Christmas episode. And I'm saying that it's a Christmas episode because I think about growing up, watching entertainment and many shows that were on television, which when I was growing up was the primary form of entertainment, television and movies. There were many of my favorite programs that had Christmas episodes. Now, as I say that, I know everybody doesn't celebrate Christmas. So I just want to say this is our holiday episode, but we're calling it the Christmas episode because that was the influence growing up. Back in the day, it wasn't holiday episodes. This is the Christmas episode, a Charlie Brown Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman and of course, countless others, Saturday Night Live, the Christmas show, and of course, Late Night with David Letterman. And then of course, Late Show with David Letterman would always have kind of a go home Christmas episode. And so this is our version of that. So we're going to come in and first off, thank Marilyn Sargent for regaling us with "'Twas My Night at the Late Show." She always has a place on this set here. She is our Darlene Love. More on Darlene Love in a moment, though. Marilyn Sargent is the Letterman Podcast's Darlene Love, and we appreciate her so much. I got a chance to actually see her in the flesh this year. And a couple other little experiences with Marilyn this year, which were incredible. But she always has a present on our set. There is the hymnal from the night that she was on Late Show with David Letterman on the pre-show and got a chance to read her poem to Dave. That version of the poem that we showed here was the very first version of the poem. If you go to, I might even finish part 2 with the last incarnation of it. Inside the hymnal there. And of course, she gave me also the bag of this is some snow from Darlene Love's last appearance on Late Show with David Letterman in 2014. Marilyn, thank you for being you. Let's talk about Darlene Love. I mean, that's what this episode's going to be, by the way. For those of you who only come on here because you want to talk, hear from the staffers, totally fine. This isn't one of those episodes, but it kind of is because we're going to have clips from the year nestled within this episode of the Letterman Podcast. So it's a Christmas episode. but it's also kind of a year in review episode as well. And then at the end, we're going to talk about what's in store for 2024. And there's some cool things that are happening. One of the things that are happening, you know what? I'm just gonna read it. I'm just gonna read it right here. I don't think she will think that I'm telling tales out of school. I think we're just whetting the beak, whetting the appetite. No, whetting the beak is getting paid on something. Certainly that hasn't happened. Although in 2024, it would be really cool. You know, I had a Letterman. It'd be really, really cool if we could turn this into a thing where I could devote more professional time to this. In other words, get paid for it. I had somebody who was attached to Dave for a long time reach out to me. We had a really good phone call. Loves what it is that we're doing, and they were, giving advice, which I appreciate very, very much. And said to me, "Hey, Mike, what you're doing here is work. You need to understand that." And I never ever viewed this as work. But they said, "No, what you're doing is you've done some stuff." And I don't want to get too inside with the way that they described how this was work from an outside perspective looking at it. And they said to me, "You're working for free. This year, you're not going to be working for free. In the next year, that's got to be your goal." And they gave me good advice about that, and I just appreciate that very, very much. So talk about 2024. That's one of the things that I would love to say, is because then I could devote more time to it. I could devote more effort to it. Good Lord. Imagine what the Letterman podcast would look like if we could do some things that were just a little bit more professional, a little bit more polished. I think that would be a lot of fun. But anyway, so we'll whet the appetite. So that's wetting the beak. We're going to whet the appetite, though, of 2024. I just received an email quite literally 5 minutes before hitting the record button here. I was checking my email just to make sure there was nothing else that I had missed so I could start recording the Christmas episode here. And I got an email from Darlene Love. Now, crazy that there would be time for her to even send this to me, because I think all of us Letterman enthusiasts we'd have to be living under a rock to not have known what Darlene Love's holiday season has been publicly, on television and in the public eye. Never mind the gigs that she has been doing almost every day. This gal since October has been ridiculously busy. 82 years old, unbelievable voice, just looks gorgeous. She's a light in this world. She and I have been communicating, and we were hoping to have her on the Christmas episode this year. Hindsight being 2020, I can already see, no, this is good that we're not. I want to have her in a time where she's not insanely busy, and we can actually go over some stuff, and we can actually give Darlene the treatment that she deserves, being the legend that she is. And she is a legend. There are so many cool things about Darlene Love and Christmas Baby Please Come Home, little nuances that have been touched on, certainly, in the past couple of weeks, and it's been sort of out there. Listen to Brian Tedda. Talk about 2024. There's another guy that we want to have on here for sure. He and I have been gone back and forth a little bit, but Brian Tedda does a podcast. He's the executive producer of The View, but he came up through Letterman. And I can't wait for him to tell his story as to becoming the top guy at The View, and how he came up through Letterman's system from an intern all the way up, and has taken on the tradition from Late Show of having Darlene Love on every year on The View to sing Christmas Baby Please Come Home. Awesome. He also does a podcast. It's a short podcast, usually reviewing or recapping the previous episode of The View that they did that day. And it's very, very cool idea. Watch Darlene on Brian Tedda's podcast, or listen to it, I should say. Very cool. He touches on a bunch of the things. I said to him after I heard the episode, I said, "Hey, you know what? It was a long form type podcast in a very short period of time." He asks a lot of very cool questions that I wanted to ask personally, will go into. And because we don't have Darlene on this show before the holidays, we'll be able to have her during a much less busy time of year for her. You shouldn't say less busy, less insane time of year for her. And we'll be able to go over some of these really, really cool things. But so anyway, I'm checking the email, and Darlene Love sends this to me. Hey, Mike, sorry I haven't responded to you sooner. My apologies. Won't be able to talk to you until the first of the year. I haven't forgotten you. Darlene, you keep going. This is amazing what you are doing. The program with Cher, the lighting ceremony, just phenomenal. And by the way, I'll talk about Will Lee in a minute here, actually. But thank you to Will for everything that he does to support this show. Obviously, we appreciate him like crazy. So yeah, it's been a really cool week for Letterman stuff. I was the other email I was hoping to see is that I would have that I won the marquee, that we won the marquee for the Letterman podcast. Haven't gotten that email yet. Fingers crossed. Hopefully that's the case. It's very cool to see them. That's Dave's version. Giveaway Dave, giving away the marquee from Late Show with David Letterman, just to kind of see what happens. We would love to win it, but at the end of the day, it would be very cool to see the journey that this marquee is going to take. I'm very curious about who wins it and what they're going to do with it. I know what we would do with it, but anyhow. So where were we? Christmas episodes. Yeah. So growing up, obviously this is our holiday episode. We want to say happy holidays, no matter what your persuasion is. Our hope, or my hope, is that this time of year for you is a good time. And if you are an enthusiast of David Letterman and you like this show, first off, what's wrong with you for liking this show? That's pretty crazy. But second off, no, I would love to spend some time, lamenting. Lamenting's not the right word. Pontificating. There, that's the right word. About this last year. And also there is some lamentation in there too as well. And going over where we have come from. This has been the first time we've had a full calendar year since the Letterman podcast started. We started back in April of 22, so we had an entire 2023. I don't know how many episodes that we put out in the calendar year. My goal was to put out at least 60. I think we did. I want to go more than 52 episodes a year. I want to have bonus episodes and things like that. And I know we did that quite a bit. All leading up to episode 100, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start saying, wow, boy, oh boy. I haven't turned the camera on since episode 100 aired 2 weeks ago. And episode 100 aired in 4 parts. And I had my hands completely off the wheel for this one. And it felt really cool. And it's funny because this holiday episode of the Letterman podcast is everything that episode 100 was not. As far as I'm concerned, episode 100, all 4 parts, in my opinion, are all one. It's like Godfather 1 and 2. I kind of view them kind of as one movie. Those 4 parts are one episode. They're just broken up to bite size a little bit for people. By far the best anything that we have ever put out. And that is because I was edited out of most of it. I fully admit that. Whereas the irony is this holiday episode, I'm going to be talking to you the whole time and nestling clips in, of course, to break the monotony and the insanity of me just talking to you. But at the end of the day, it wasn't just that I was edited out. I say that a little bit tongue in cheek. Having Don Giller put his eye on the Letterman podcast with his the width and breadth of his point of view, experience. First off, an incredible. He's going to hate this. He's not going to watch any more of this episode now, because he's going to hate what I'm about to say. But at the end of the day, the honor of that, and he's taken episode 100 and he's put it on his channel. The honor of having something that I have been a part of directly on Don Giller's channel, his YouTube channel. I can't I can't adequately express the honor about that. I'm blown away by that. That's the emotional part. Let's go to the logical part now. The logical part of having that man, nothing short of an expert. I just got a notification. Will Lee, it's a blue Christmas on YouTube. I'm going to share that after this, but after this, let's all see Will Lee, a blue Christmas, on the YouTube. But having Don Giller put his eye and his expertise over our show, and this guy spent hours, hundreds of hours, I would submit, doing this, because he had to go over all the episodes of the Letterman podcast that happened between 0 and 199. Dennis Pino was episode 99, and figure out how to put clips in. And the clips that I'm going to put in this episode are going to be hopefully all different from the ones that he used, to create a narrative. And he did it. Like, it was so cool. Again, I had very limited interaction with how this was created. When he said that he was going to do this, I was blown away, and I wanted to be involved as little as possible because I was so curious as to what Don Giller would find worthy of the narrative that he kind of found. The thing I love about Don's compilations is he takes old clips, puts them together, and creates narrative. Sometimes it's just a guest who, over the entire late night and late show run, puts them all together, and that itself creates the narrative. But sometimes he will put things together, like I think about Alan Coulter's compilation. It's really, really fun to watch Don be Don and to put in some of his editorial influence into things. And the way that he did it, at first it was going to be one episode, and then he messaged me. He's like, it's going to be 5 hours long. And I said, well, episode 100 doesn't have to be one episode. It could be 4 episodes. It could be 6 episodes, whatever. And so, he got back to me again, and he's like, talking about, the one that I love the most is episode 2, to be perfectly frank, of 100, episode 100 of the Letterman podcast, the transition. It is, in my opinion, one of the greatest moments in entertainment, from a fascination standpoint, and entertaining standpoint, as well, and from my generation. And it's very cool that the transition from NBC to CBS has an entire episode. And I go back to think about Morty and George Schweitzer and the others who were featured in that. And I feel like Bill Carter, of course. Bill Carter, oh my goodness. I'll get to these people in a second here, but I feel like that Don actually helped show that the Letterman podcast actually has contributed something to the Letterman mythos, and particularly in that episode. I just I really appreciate Don, and he made this show way better than it ever could be. And maybe if we start getting some production budget and things like that, a show like the one we're doing today will never exist again, with me just talking to camera. This show isn't about me. I certainly want to be a conduit for the community, for the enthusiasts. I want to be somebody who can elicit great conversation and response. This is a conversation podcast. It's not an interview podcast. It's one where we want to have conversations. I think that's the key to getting people who aren't used to being on camera to open up and to talk about some of these things. I think it's because many times those types of people don't want to be interviewed, but they love to have a conversation. But that being said, I think if we had maybe an editor who wasn't me, this show could be a whole lot better. And Don certainly proved that. We have never put out anything as good as we did with the 4 parts of episode 100, and that's all Dawn Giller. So Dawn, I just want to say thank you so much. That is a holiday present beyond anything that I could have ever asked for. And I'm gonna get emotional again, so I shouldn't do that. I just appreciate him so much for what he has done. So we've had this 12-month cycle leading up to episode 100, and it was for the Letterman podcast itself as an entity, this was an incredible year. There were many moments for me personally that were absolutely incredible, but it wasn't all ups. There were some downs as well. And, every episode opens with me looking at that picture right there. And that's Rick Sheckman in his prime, in his glory, wearing a Cat Stevens t-shirt. I got that picture. Why do you have a picture of Rick Sheckman blown up? Well, many times, unfortunately, pictures of human beings living on this planet that aren't in entertainment in front of the camera. The only time they get their picture blown up is at their memorial. Many times that's the case. And I don't know if that's the only time Rick's had his picture blown up, but this is from his memorial. And his niece gave that to me at his memorial. This show doesn't exist without Rick Sheckman. And we lost Rick Sheckman on my birthday on March 10th. And boy, he gave me gifts. He gave this show gifts, presents, all the way up until a couple weeks before he passed. And a couple days before he passed, he said some really, really nice things about this show. And the last time I talked to him, he said some really, really nice things about this show. And at the beginning, and I mean, you can go back, and if you want to watch me talk about Rick, I did a tribute episode to him, and then Alex Bennett came on and we talked about him. If you want to go back and watch those, please do. Everybody should know about Rick Sheckman. And we talk about him a lot, and I will continue to talk about him a lot with those who worked with him. Rick is always going to be a part of the Letterman podcast. So it wasn't all ups. There were a lot of there was a pretty significant down for us this year as well. So 2023 was a year of significant growth for us, significant credibility, but also significant loss. And the gravity of, every single one of these people that we do lose that I don't end up getting on here. Oh man, because it's so special to hear these amazing people tell their stories. And some of them are starting to get up there, because late night was 41 years ago now that Late Night with David Letterman started, the morning show even earlier, Dave guesting on the Tonight Show even earlier, the Comedy Store even earlier. You think about some of Dave's friends. We want to get for the Letterman podcast, we want this complete anecdotal archive. And so anyway, I want to work harder this next year to make that all happen. And I just want to say thank you very much to everybody who has encouraged us. I even have people, I talk about it kind of tongue in cheek a little bit. I even have people who have complimented and said, no, this feels like a community. Do episodes like this where it's just me talking. I don't know. I know that I'm okay with that when I listen to podcasts. Like if I'm listening to a Kevin Smith podcast, I'm cool to listen to Kevin Smith for an hour or some of the other podcasts that I enjoy. I don't know that I'm that guy, but I know that there have been people who are like, no, Mike, do that. I love listening to you talk. And I can't imagine that, but that's what this episode is. We'll throw some clips in a second here. let's do our year in review. Let's start that and see how that goes. Um, uh, you know what? I'm going to start with Marilyn Sargent from last year. I just appreciate her so much for the episode that we did, the Christmas episode for last year, and her sharing the poem, the evolution of the poem. And I got to see Marilyn at Rupert's retirement party in the flesh. And then after that, she went over to Jay Ryan. Shout out to Jay and Nicole. Shout out to Nicole right now. She's Jay's wife is gripped with MS. Jay's the guy who stole the microphone. He was early episode of the Letterman podcast. So, and if you haven't seen Jay Ryan, Cars and Comedy, definitely a part of our community. We're a part of his community. And if ever a Letterman podcast network does start, Jay is certainly one of the founders of that. But anyway, Marilyn got a chance to go sit at the original Late Show desk and see the microphone, the legendary microphone. I love that. I'm so grateful that she got to have that experience. And that's one thing that this show wants to do is help others get some pretty cool experiences that they might not have gotten. So feel free to reach out to us. If there's someone that you've always wanted to talk to or ask a question to or whatever, if we can be a conduit for that, we want to do that. So Marilyn Sargent, last year's Christmas episode. Then we move into Will Lee. Now, Will Lee, I can go on and on and on and on about Will Lee. Boy, could I go on about Will Lee. I actually have a bona fide friendship with this dude, and he's one of the coolest cats walking the planet. He really, really is. He's just fantastic. Hardworking, still working insane all around the world, going to Japan, going to Europe, recording in the studio in Germany, doing 12-hour, 14-hour sessions in recording studios in New York, just touring around with multiple gigs, multiple groups, still doing Fab Faux stuff. And when a new Beatles song comes out, I get to call him, or he calls me. I'm trying not to curse on here as much. I know in the early episodes, it was like, yeah, free and easy. Let's curse all the time. I don't want to get kicked off platforms and YouTubes and things like that if we are going to try and monetize this thing. But when we had our episode with Dick Cavett, about 4 days later, I get this, I look on the caller ID and it's Will Lee. And I knew he was going to Germany. And I pick up, I'm like, what? This is okay. And hello? And all he says is, Dick effing Cavett. Are you kidding me? Those were his first words to me. And I'm like, aren't you in Germany, dude? He goes, yeah, but I just had to call. I just had to. I cannot tell you how cool a guy that Will is. I mean, if you watch his episode, you'll see it. I've been given a note to ask about the Paul bobblehead or the bobbleheads.
The bobblehead. That was the thing that I just, my wife and I thought, how could we do something that's really cool, honoring Paul for a Christmas present for all the staffers? That's the one. Made in China. And where all good bobbleheads come from. So between Sandrine, my wife, and I, we looked into it and found a company that would do this. I forgot how we got it happening. I think we must have sent multiple images of Paul from different angles or something. Yep. He didn't know this was happening, of course. And we made a couple of hundred, and we gave it to the staff, everybody on staff, as a Christmas gift that year. And awesome. I think most people thought it came from Paul.
About 2024, we're gonna have Will on again, and we're gonna have an even deeper episode than we did the first time. But I just appreciate Will so much. He's so fantastic. Jeremy Weiner. Okay, we are going to interrupt the year in review right now. Jeremy Weiner is an amazing guy, and I want to do him justice and everybody else as we do the year in review. But this podcast got hijacked in a lovely way. I was actually doing the year in review, and some activity was happening in the background, and that activity had to do with one of David Letterman's legendary guests from late night, Sandra Bernhard. And now I absolutely loved her growing up, watching her on late night. I know a lot of other people can certainly say the same, that she was a guest that certainly brought a unique energy, to say the least, to sitting in the chair beside David Letterman from the very beginning all the way up to, I think she did 2 appearances on Late Show. She was on late night primarily 26 or 27 times maybe, and then a couple of times on Late Show as well. You can actually go on Don Giller's channel and see there's a 3-part compilation for Sandra Bernhard. Now, I have been wanting to get her on the show for a long time. I've reached out to her in a few different ways, but never been able to penetrate the shield that gets to her. I've had also a bunch of you guys have reached out to me to try and get her on the show and talk to me about Sandra. I know that she has I don't have Sirius XM. I just don't have it because it's just the timing thing. I just don't have time for all the content that's out there right now. And I mean, I'm trying to make content, so I'm not seeing as much as I'd like to. I'd like to see Conan stuff on there. There's other people who have shows on Sirius that I would love to dive into. But and Sandra's one of them, actually. She does a show once a week on, I believe it's Andy Cohen's channel on Sirius XM, Radio Andy. And it's called Sandyland. And that's something I would listen to every week. I really, really appreciate the unique perspective that Sandra brings to life. So anyway, as I was shooting the podcast this morning, it's a little bit later in the day now, my phone was going off and people were saying, hey, you're giving me some tips about how I might be able to talk to Sandra right now. And so I kind of paused things. I kept the cameras rolling though, and I kind of paused things and decided to see about calling into her show. And apparently she's talked about Dave a little bit lately, and so I did. And you know what? It's the universe giving the Letterman podcast a Christmas present. I'll say that. I've put together a little bit of what happened, and we're going to show that right now. So I don't know if this is legal, if we're going to get in trouble for this or not, but we have put together both sides of my call with Sandra Bernhard. So roll it. Jerry is busy. Oh boy, is it going to be one of these things? Oh, I got in. Oh, come on, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone. Wouldn't it be crazy if we talked to Sandra Bernhard during the Christmas episode of the Letterman podcast? Hello, I would like to speak with Sandra Bernhard, please.
What's your name?
My name is Mike Chisholm.
All right, and where are you calling from?
Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada. And I should also let you know that I'm the host of the Letterman podcast.
Oh, okay. And what do you want to tell her?
Massive affection from myself and folks who are enthusiasts of David Letterman. That's one of the things. And then 2, if we can have a little conversation about some stuff. I have, a laundry list of questions, but I don't know the format. I don't know how long I have with her. So, whatever you guys want.
You want her as long as she wants to talk to you. And
Right on.
They're callers that we get.
Okay.
We take callers during the second segment.
Sure.
So that's going to be in about 10 minutes. You can stay on the line or you can give us a call back. Either way, I'm going to put you on hold.
I'm going to stay on the line. Yeah. Can I hear the show while I'm on hold?
You'll be able to hear her.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you.
Whatever. But then, I don't know who recommended Alexa, but she has done so much for me and the family. You're wrong.
I don't know about the legalities.
2019.
This is Sandra talking right now.
I want to say to all of you that I love what I do. I love being on Radio Andy.
So Sandra Bernhard is going to be on the Letterman podcast.
Very pleased.
Maybe this is like a Christmas present to the Letterman podcast right here, that I get a chance to talk to Sandra Bernhard. I don't know how the hell I'm going to edit this episode. It comes out tomorrow. Don Giller just said breathe.
Sorry, where are you calling from again?
Kelowna, British Columbia, Canada.
We're going to be back on a break.
Sounds great.
By the way, I forgot to tell you, actress, author, and stand-up comedian Susie Essman is here.
Mike in British Columbia. Hi, sweetheart. How are you?
Sandra, it's Mike Chisholm. I am actually the host of the Letterman Podcast. It is surreal to talk to you today. How you doing? I'm sorry about your voice.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Tell me about your podcast. I want to hear all about it.
The Letterman Podcast is a celebration of the greatest body of broadcast work in history, that of David Letterman and Company. The reason I'm calling today is I have a significant fan base who have wanted you on our show, and one of them, his name's Richard, shout out to Richard, gave me the number for this show and said, you should call in and talk to Sandy. And I'm like, all right. And so that's what I'm doing. Obviously, your work that you did on that show is incredible. So,
Well, let's do it.
oh, okay.
Let's make it happen.
Okay. I can't wait. I can't wait to have you on. You are phenomenal. And
Before we get off, give Shakira your info,
yeah.
and I'll send it to my publicist, and then he'll reach out to you.
Okay, that sounds
But
great.
you know what you can do? You can also go to my website.
Yep.
His name is Ken,
Yep.
and just reach out to him.
Okay. But can we talk a little bit now? Like, I mean, this is really cool talking to you.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Talk to me. Talk to me. Ask me questions. Tell me your thoughts.
All right. Well, I go deep, unfortunately, and so I don't know if it's going to isolate the audience, but I believe that Whitney Houston performed "I Will Always Love You" the way that she did because she saw you perform it on Late Night with David Letterman back in the early 80s first. Her rendition is strikingly like yours.
Is it really?
Oh, I mean, gosh, it's not like Dolly Parton's. It's if I listen to your version of it and then I listen to Whitney, it's like, oh yeah, there's a bit of a similarity there. Yeah, I mean those moments.
Do you remember which episode of the show that I sang to him that song?
Oh man, I want to say, I can't say it off the top of my head. You can go on, for those who want to see Sandra on Late Night and Late Show with David Letterman, go to Don Giller's YouTube. And there's a 3-part compilation of all of the appearances. I think it was the third time you appeared on the show. I think it was 83. I want to say it's 83. I'm pretty sure it was like after the Kings of Comedy in that era.
Well, that was the first time I was on. It was to promote King of Comedy.
Yeah.
And it was definitely 83.
Yeah. Okay. So it wasn't your first time, but it was really close to that anyway. And I would love when you would sing a verse of a song and just do a few bars and just show your how talented you are when you were on Late Night. It was incredible. And I'm talking lots because I know you're having a hard time talking.
You know what? You get kudos for that, honey. Keep talking. Keep talking.
I'll tell you this. I've got a laundry list of things I would want to ask you about if you come on the show. One of the things, of course, is Comedy Store years. And I mean, we've had Dreesen on, we've had Altman on. We're talking to Mule Deer right now. Shout out to Gary Mule Deer. He's having some struggles a little bit health wise. I want to talk to you about the Comedy Store. Yeah, unfortunately, and we can give shout outs to him that day. That'll make him happy. But I want to talk about Comedy Store years with you and some of these things.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Do you think back to the Comedy Store years to this day the way that Dave does?
No, I
Okay.
don't. Not the way Dave does, because, when you were a man performing at the Comedy Store, it was a whole different kind of experience. But I'm always very grateful to those years, especially in the belly room.
Yeah.
Which was so stupid, but it gave me and a few other women friends, an opportunity to really expand our repertoire and get our confidence level up. And it was just such a unique situation back in the 70s to be in that setting, because it was just raw. It was raw, and there was only so many outlets for comics back then. It wasn't like today where, there's social media and YouTube and you can TikTok.
Yeah.
You can do it anywhere you want. There was nothing. People would come from, the shows, the sitcoms. They come see you. Sometimes you get a part on a show, or maybe you end up with your own series.
Yep.
But there really wasn't that much outlet. Or you go on the Tonight Show.
Yep.
Or eventually, not the Letterman Show didn't exist.
Yeah.
So it was so rarefied. It was so like that was it. It was like you were doing what you were supposed to do. And you had to get really good at that before you were ever going to go anywhere else. And wherever else it was either on the road, playing bigger gigs, or opening for somebody, or it was TV or film. And I got lucky, and I got the King of Comedy, and that was my ticket out of there. So it was amazing. I'm looking forward to talking to you.
Oh man, it's going to be a lot of fun.
I can tell. I can tell.
The word that I have for you and your appearances is a high regard word. It's reverence. Because for a variety of reasons, and I mean, I've got so many questions that I would love to just dive in with you, but really at the end of the day, it was Dave's friends throughout the years, no matter what era of his career it was, his friends from the Comedy Store had a different rapport and relationship with him. Even at the beginning, when the show was the experimental, the basement, the indie, if you want to call it that, all the way up to when he became, kind of powerful Dave, where he was more, revered than the person beside him. The friends from the Comedy Store they got under the armor immediately. They treated him differently. And the way that you would bring it to him, the way that you would absolutely show off your talent. And I mean, I've got a couple people that I compare you to, because you don't know where the line blurs to when you're being serious, to how much would have been produced, or a segment producer would have gone over it, versus improv, versus how much of it is an act. I would compare you to Robin Williams when it comes to that. You were absolutely incredible. One of Dave's best guests of all time. And diving into that and asking you about some of those things is going to be a complete honor.
I can't wait to do it, Mike, and we're going to make that happen in the new year. So Let's get everything in motion. But do give your information to Shakira, and I will forward it also to Ken, my publicist, so we can go at it from two different angles and get this booked.
Absolutely. It's going to be a hell of a lot of fun. I appreciate you. Thanks for toughing it out with the voice today, and thanks for giving me some time to talk to you. It's been an absolute treat, and we're gonna go deep and long later on.
I can see you're a pro, and I can't wait to do it, Mike. Thank you, honey.
Oh, this is gonna be outstanding. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy Disneyland, everybody.
Oh, so sweet, Mike. Andrea, West Hollywood. Hi, Andrea.
Hey. Let's just do Letterman Podcast.
To pass this along. Thank you so much for calling today.
That was a lot of fun. Thank you very much. Bye. Okay. So does anybody out there know the legalities of posting this end of a phone call from a Sirius XM show? I'm gonna shout out. I've had a few people who have told me about Sandra's show on Sirius, but I don't have Sirius. So Richard Handel. I'm going to give you the big shout out right now, because you gave me the phone number to call in and have been nudging me the last couple of months that I need to call her. So, you know what? Richard's got some health stuff going on as well. So we want to, from the Letterman Podcast, we want to shout out Richard and say, hey, I hope that you're okay, buddy. Yeah, I just appreciate you very, very much. Thank you for nudging me to do this. Having Sandra on this show is going to be a complete honor. Merry Christmas to the Letterman Podcast. And it happened right in the middle of our Christmas episode, which is coming out tomorrow. You know what? I'm going to keep that in there. We're going to do some fancy editing today, and we'll go from there. All right. Now that was a Christmas present for the Letterman Podcast. Completely spontaneous. That was not planned. But boy, did it work out. And was it kind of cool that we got a chance to kind of document that on the Christmas episode of the Letterman Podcast. So we're going to continue the year in review and go over that because next week, it's all the sports shows do that, right? The plays of the year, hockey fan, right? The hits of the year, the goals of the year, the passes of the year, whatever, all that kind of stuff. And I think that it's a cool tradition that we get into as well. Some of the highlights from some of the guests on the show, and we give a chance to thank all the guests who come on the show. I'm going to kind of fast forward. One of the guests who came on the show this year was Glenn Borders. Glenn Borders, I appreciate him so much. He's a special effects guy for Letterman. He's the guy who made the desk vibrate. He did a whole bunch of stuff. Glenn, one of the things that he was most proud of was the very last Darlene Love Christmas show in 2014. He was so proud of that, and he made it snow. And that the atmosphere in that room was just amazing. People are still talking about the last time Darlene Love was on. We talked about Darlene Love at the beginning of this episode. We're going to finish up talking about her and having Glenn come on and tell this story for the Christmas episode of the Letterman Podcast in 2023. We're going to continue on next week with the year in review of 2023 and wish everybody a happy new year at that point. But let's finish this show today talking to our friend Glenn Borders about the final Late Show Christmas episode with Darlene Love. Do you remember this? Do you remember what this is?
No, I can't really see it.
Okay. That's they call it the hymnal. It's the poem, "'Twas the Night at the Late Show." And inside is a baggie. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that is snow. That is some of the snow from Darlene Love's last performance.
Yes.
I want to talk about that.
I'm sure I have that in there. Yeah, I'm sure I have it.
I'm sure you do too.
Yeah.
I know how particularly proud you were of this, and we'll put up some pictures in the Facebook group and all that. But there's some of the snow.
Yeah.
From the very last performance, Darlene Love's last performance. And I mean, that last year, there were so many magical moments. At the very top of the list, outside of the 6 weeks, maybe the most important or the biggest moment was the very last Christmas show, or the culmination Christmas show with Darlene Love and her performance. I think that was by far, of all the years she's been on, that was by far the biggest, and it was the best performance. Baby, Please Come Home. This is actual asbestos from the final Christmas show is what was given. You were particularly proud of making it snow in the theater that night. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Let me tell you, first of all, I am not a Christmassy guy. I never.
You're not like Pat Farmer. Pat Farmer certainly is.
Oh, absolutely. Well, everybody there was. I mean, I would never say Merry Christmas to anyone unless they say it to me. I was raised correctly. I will say Merry Christmas back to you, or same to you. It's a good one. Same to you. Sure. I am not a Christmassy guy, but I absolutely loved doing snow for Darlene Love on the Christmas show. I loved doing the Christmas show.
Yeah,
it was iconic. It was just great to watch on television, let alone be a part of it. And for many years, they allowed me to be a part of this thing. And as an assistant, when I learned to do it from Gene, just to be a part of that, and then to be the assistant making everything happen, was so cool. But then those 10, 11, 12 years, whatever it was, years that I was the guy, I was so proud to do this. It was such a great effect for such a great song, for such a great moment, for such a great artist on such a great show. And to be a part of it, it's just like, wow, man, I can't believe I did that. I made it my own. Yeah, I learned it from Gene, but I made it my own. Because we had the catwalk above the stage, and we would order small wind machines and we would attach them to the catwalk. At first, we would just do it over facing the stage. I guess I'm in the middle of the stage.
Yeah.
We'd have about two of them there. And it would be me, another person, and Gene. And then we had snow machines that stayed up all year long over the first two rows of the audience. So it snowed a little bit in the audience as well. So so Gene would do that, and me and myself and someone else, we would do the two. Well, I made it to a bigger thing. I had two wind machines on this side, two wind machines on that side, two wind machines on that side, and the audience. So I told them, they said, well, we want it bigger and better. I said, well, I need more guys. I need more pairs of hands.
Yep.
And so they never wanted to pay for extra guys. And so I always thought, if you want this thing to be epic, you have to give me the guys I want. And so they started giving me 6 guys, plus myself, 7 people.
Yep.
And we made it snow. So we had the wind machines, and what we did, we angled them up like a 45-degree angle. And I taught everyone how to keep continuous snow going. Because if you grab a handful of snow and put it in front of the fan, it will blow up and then drop down.
Right.
So if you do a hand at a time, there'll be a hole. It'll be snow, and then it'll stop for a split second, and it'll be snow. And so I would teach everyone to grab it, a handful, and while you're doing that, you're grabbing another handful. And you don't just toss it. You want to do this.
So you're cycle. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So that it's coming through your fingers. And so you've got 6 guys up on the catwalk doing that from 3 different angles. Like so that it comes out, not because if you do this, it's gonna come out in clumps.
Right.
So you don't want clumps. This here will break it up, and the wind just blows it out of your hand. It blows up and it drops down.
Yep.
They always allowed me to take the cue on my own. I didn't need a stage manager for that because I knew the song so well. So they all knew that the snow was going to happen when the snow was supposed to happen, because Glenn, I mean, I'm a theater guy, I'm a director.
Yes.
I know what a cue is. I know when the cue is. I don't always need to be cued. So when I start, everyone knows to start when I start. We had so much snow falling on that stage. But it was so beautiful because, like I said, with no clumps at all, because it will clump together if you just dump it out of your hand.
Yep.
It was just this beautiful individual snowflakes falling from all over. Plus, it was falling in the audience. So if you were in the front row, you had the snow on you. But if you were in rows back, of course, you have the monitors that you're watching. But then when you're looking at the stage, you're looking through snow to see snow. It was such a cool effect. And on the last one, I had all my best guys there. I had the 18 crew, and man, did it look beautiful. And even the stills that they have taken with the finale of the song, and the Darlene that with her arms out, and Paul's there, conducting, and the snow's falling. So iconic. So iconic. I could not be more proud to have done that and to be a part of that. I mean, that lives in TV history.
It absolutely does. I got goosebumps as you were saying that. I got goosebumps all over. And I'm glad that
loved it.
Oh, it was so good. And thanks to Marilyn Sargent, by the way, who's the one that sent me some of the actual snow and the copy of the hymnal here. That was a beautiful night. Okay. How awesome is Glenn and just the artistry and the mastery of artistry in creating the effect for that night. We have clips of other people talking about Darlene and the last Christmas show on our show, but you know what? I think that's a great place to end it. I must tell you all right now, this is not the Christmas episode that I envisioned and started working on 2 months ago. 2 months ago, I thought, okay, we'll get Darlene Love on here, and that's what's going to happen. And I kept it pretty under wraps that it could have happened, and so circumstance just didn't allow it to happen. And it was so funny how this works. I'm really grateful for this Christmas episode of the Letterman Podcast. It is nowhere near what I thought it was going to be 2 months ago. And then after around episode 100, I started thinking, you know what, the year in review thing, that's what we'll do. We'll show the poem again, Marilyn's poem again, and um, today when I set out to shoot this episode, this is not what I thought it was going to be. I appreciate the fact that sometimes, not that this went off the rails, it just went into a different destination than I thought it was going to. I just want to say this to all of you who have stuck with us from the very beginning and really, really, really put up with the growing pains and the inadequacies at the beginning of this thing that the Letterman podcast that I personally have brought to this thing. Thank you very much. Now, for people who have just come on board in the last couple of months, we've had a bunch of you. You'd be like, "What? It's been worse than this?" Yeah, it has. It's been significantly worse than this. It's the time of year where, it's not Thanksgiving, but there's a similar sentiment, I think, this time of year, certainly, with family getting together and whatever the holidays mean to you, whatever your persuasion is. I think about all of the Jewish folks who are on our show and a part of our world. I wish you the happiest of Hanukkah. For people who do celebrate Christmas, we wish you the merriest of Christmases. Any other holidays that are being celebrated at this time of year, I hope your Festivus is unbelievable as well. Everything, it's a holiday season, and whatever that means to you, I hope that it's a good one. For those of you, many of you know, I have a men's mental wellness podcast as well. My wife building a men's mental health app called He Changed It. I'm not, of course, unaware all too well that there are some people this time of year that aren't having an easy time of it. And there are some people, I've had people reach out about my other show and this show telling me that they use this to keep them company. For you, I want to say especially a happy holiday. And, where I can, I see you, and where we can, we see you. And thank you for being vulnerable enough to tell us that. And I hope wherever you're at in the holidays, whether you're with insane crowds of people and you're just trying to keep up with the busyness, I hope that you can. And if you are, alone or stoic, or in that place where you're keeping everything at bay, whether through circumstance or through your own, I just say happy holiday, and I hope that works out for you as well. But at the end of the day, there is one resounding wish that I have for people, and that's some joy. I certainly get a tremendous amount of joy out of this show and my family. And when I feel joy, I wish and hope that others can feel it as well. So happy holidays. I hope that you have enjoyed this very hodgepodged Christmas episode of the Letterman podcast. My name is Mike Chisholm. Thank you, and to all, a good night.